Welcome to a new episode of the National Bureau of Economic Research Data Entry Demonstration. Today we are entering Civil War Union Army veteran Woodbury Harmon's Surgeon's Certificates. Physical examinations of veterans were performed to determine eligibility for a pension. In addition to providing identifying demographic and military service information, each certificate contains the statement of the claimant regarding his health and disability and some basic physiological measures such as height, weight, pulse rate, and respiration rate. The examining physicians provided numerical ratings for individual conditions and for disability in general. The bulk of the certificate contains the findings and descriptions of the examining physicians. Examining physicians were charged with a set of detailed instructions which gave a measure of uniformity to the certificates. However, there was still substantial variation in the content of exams. Part of this variation was due to changes in examination procedures over time, but part was also due to idiosyncratic variation in the methods of examining physicians. Of course, the content of an individual certificate was determined primarily by the health of the veteran being examined. With few exceptions, all the information from a surgeon certificate is input. The inputting program consists of 42 screens, organized into an entry screen and 20 main disease screens. The data collection screens were developed under the supervision of medical doctors who provided hundreds of hours of advice. Each surgeon certificate for a recruit is entered separately, and the information is input in the order in which it is found in the document. We will enter 7 of Woodbury Harmon's surgeon certificates in chronological order. Here is the first certificate. The soldier's name is Woodbury S. Harmon, spelled with A-N. The application type is original because this is the first time Harmon has applied for a pension. He served as a private in Company G, 1st Regiment, Massachusetts, or G1 Massachusetts. The address of the Board of Surgeons is Boston, Massachusetts. The claimant's address is not given. The exam date is March 23, 1863. There is no previous pension rating because this is an original claim and the soldier has not yet received an award. There is no age or descriptive information on this certificate. Harmon is an applicant for an invalid pension by reason of alleged disability resulting from a gunshot wound. Gunshot wound is the claimant's statement. Next, we will enter the surgeon's description of the soldier's disabilities. On early certificates, the soldiers were only examined for disabilities that they claimed on their pension applications. The certificate states, "This wound was on the outside of the right shoulder. The power and usefulness of his arm is somewhat impaired." To enter this information, we must go to the Injury Gunshot Wound main screen. We do this by typing GSW in the disease field at the bottom of the entry screen. This field allows the researcher to access all the disease screens. Once on the specific screen, information from the certificate is entered in the appropriate questions. If there is no appropriate question for a piece of information, it is entered in additional comments at the bottom of each disease screen. The soldier received a gunshot wound. GSW, our standard abbreviation for gunshot wound, is entered in question 1, what caused the injury. The wound is in the soldier's right shoulder. This is entered in question 2, list the body part or organ affected by the injury or gunshot wound. In question 3, we describe the current complications, disabilities, etc. that are associated with the gunshot wound. This wound was on the outside of the right shoulder. Each complication is entered separately. To access more fields, type Y in the switch field. The power and usefulness of his arm is somewhat impaired. The certificate reads, "The disability is not permanent." We enter this in the additional comments tagged with a 0. Information in the additional comments is tagged with the number of its associated question on the screen. If there is no associated question, the tag is 0. Before 1890, to receive a pension rating, the wound or disease must have been caused by the soldier's wartime service. The certificate states, "Judging from his present condition and from the evidence before me, it is my belief that the said disability was received in the service aforesaid in the line of duty." We enter this information in question 4, when, time period, did the injury or gunshot wound occur. Upon completing the physical examination, the physician must rate the soldier's disability. The soldier is rated in terms of his ability to perform manual labor. The certificate says, "In my opinion, the said Woodbury S. Harmon is 3/4 incapacitated for obtaining his subsistence by manual labor from the cause above stated." This information is entered in question 6, injury gunshot wound rating. Since a soldier can have multiple wounds, we specify which wound the rating applies to. Besides his rating, this statement describes the soldier's disability, so we must enter this information again. We return to the entry screen and open a list of disease screens already accessed, with additional lines to enter more diseases. Typing GA on the next blank line takes us to the general appearance screen. The screen is divided into 2 parts. On the second page of the screen, we answer why to question 10. Is the claimant's ability to do manual labor impaired? We must then type in the disability description from the certificate. If the soldier's ability to do manual labor was impaired by multiple injuries or diseases, we would enter this information on the additional comments of the general appearance screen tagged with a 10. But Harmon is disabled only by a gunshot wound. Therefore, we will return to the gunshot wound screen and enter this information in the additional comments tagged with a 0. This is the end of the first certificate. An experienced inputter could input it in about 3 to 4 minutes. Over the course of a veteran's life, he will apply for pension increases multiple times. This could be in response to a change in pension law or a change in the degree of his disability. Here is Harmon's second surgeon certificate. Much of the information we input will be done in the same way as on the previous certificate. His name is Woodbury S. Harmon, this time spelled with O-N. The application type is I, because the soldier is seeking to increase his pension rate. He is a private in G1, Massachusetts. The board is located in Boston, Suffolk County, Massachusetts. The claimant's address is not given. The exam date is September 5, 1873. His previous pension rating is $2 2/3 per month, or 1/3. Note that we changed $2 2/3 to $2.67. He is pensioned for gunshot wound, right shoulder. We have descriptive information for the soldier. He is 40 years old. He is 5 feet 7 inches tall. He weighs 130 pounds. His complexion is fair. His pulse rate is 72. Since we don't know if this pulse indicates sitting, standing, or after exercise, we enter it into the unspecified field. His respiration is 17. We also enter this into unspecified. The claimant's statement is gunshot wound, right shoulder. Like the first certificate, the soldier is claiming a gunshot wound, so we begin on the injury gunshot wound main screen. From the claimant's statement, we know the wound is a gunshot wound. We will enter this in question 1. We also know that the wound was in the right shoulder. Next, we will enter the surgeon's description of the soldier's disabilities. The certificate states, ball entered at posterior edge of glenoid cavity and emerged from posterior border of axilla. Here we learn that it was a ball that caused the injury. This is more specific than gunshot wound, so we return to question 1 and change GSW to ball. In question 3, we will describe the current complications, etc. Ball entered at posterior edge of glenoid cavity. Type Y in the switch field to access more lines. Ball emerged from posterior border of axilla. The certificate further states, loss of power in arm slight atrophy of deltoid muscle. This information is also entered in question 3. The last thing we will enter for this certificate is the rating. The certificate states, in our opinion, the said pensioner's disability from the cause aforesaid continues at 1/3, $2 2/3 per month. These ratings will be entered separately in question 6, injury gunshot wound rating. The next certificate is similar to the previous one. The soldier's name is Woodbury S. Harmon, and the application type is increase. He was a private in G1, Massachusetts. The board address is Boston, Suffolk County, Massachusetts. The exam date is March 3, 1880. The previous pension rating is $2 per month for gunshot wound, right shoulder. Please note that his rating has been decreased. He is 46 years old. He is 5 feet 7 3/4 inches tall. He weighs 123 pounds. His complexion is dark. No pulse or respiration is given. The claimant's statement is gunshot wound, right shoulder. The physician's description of the soldier's disability is as follows. We find ball entered just at top of shoulder at post border, passed, was lying down, downwards, and emerged in fold of axilla, and impaired outward motion of arm and strength, has been rated too low. The injury was caused by a ball. The affected body part is the right shoulder. The remainder of the exam are complications, deformities, etc. related to the injury. The statement that the board thinks he has been rated too low is not entered, but the board's increased rating recommendation is. We find his disability, as described above, to be equal to and entitling him to 3/8 total, equals $3 per month. This concludes Part 1 of the Surgeon Certificate demonstration. Parts 2 through 4 of this demonstration, as well as other videos, are available on our Union Army Data YouTube channel or at uadata.org. On uadata.org, you will also find user guides, manuals, contact information, and of course, the Union Army data sets for download. If you have any questions, we are happy to help. Thank you for watching this demonstration.